Prismatic Evolutions has got to be the most confusing, if not anger-inducing Pokemon set of all time. The scarcity of product, the pack prices, the card prices. This set has basically turned the community upside down. But on the flip side, it has given us 32 very wonderful special illustration rares with some insane prices. Some of which are deserved and some not so much. But today we are going to completely ignore all those prices and rank these very wonderful special illustration rares 1 through 32. And starting us off at the very bottom of this list are cards that people didn't even know were special illustration rares. So I'm sorry, Amaris, Drayton, Lacey, and Crispin, the Pokemon Company did you guys dirty. There are ultra rares that are better artworks than you guys as a whole. So you're going to bring up the rear. And just above them is another crew of 4. I've got all the Ogerpons, whether it's Teal Mask, Wellspring, or Cornerstone Ogerpon, there's nothing special about any of them. It's the same sad story since Twilight Masquerade. I just don't see any appeal to these cards. Matter of fact, I might even switch it up and put the 4 trainers ahead of the Ogerpons. I just feel like they're bland and overall undesirable. In the number 24 spot, I've got Petrun EX. It's very bright, it's adorable. However, it doesn't feel special to me. It feels like an illustration rare, and that goes for probably the next 5 to 10 cards on this list, because ahead of it we do have Sandy Shocks. Again, nothing really special about this card. It does just feel like an illustration rare. However, I do like the fact that it looks like a cave drawing. I find it neat, and it is no way worse than the first 8 cards we have on this list. And following that, I do have Iron Crown EX. I'm not gonna lie to you, this is not a spectacular card. It literally looks like I could have drawn this in my 7th grade calc class on graph paper. That's just, that's the story. There's nothing super special about it, but it is not as good as one of the other trainer special illustration rares that we have on this list, and that is Kieran. I do have to admit that the background of this artwork is incredible. I do like the incorporation of the trainers, and it just feels like they put more effort into this card than they did the ones previous. Which leads me to the next card on this list where I feel like they just did too much with this card, and that's the Terapagos EX. This thing is so busy, it is bright, it is colorful, but you can hardly see the Pokemon because of the type of Pokemon that it is and the abilities that it has, so I understand that. Granted, I'm just not a big fan of how hard I have to look to distinguish the Pokemon from the background that it's in. Next on this list, I have the Iron Hands EX. Super cool artwork. The way they have it depicted, it looks like a rocket ship blasting off into the sky, and it even looks like it's part of the cloud. And you've got the reflection of the yellow light from its hands on the crystals. All in all, I think it's a phenomenal artwork. Following Iron Hands, we have Janine's Secret Art, and I know that I said I'm not the biggest fan of special illustration rare trainer cards, but the way they have Janine depicted as if she's up to no good with that mischievous smile, I do think it's a better artwork than the previous 6 special illustration rare Pokemon. And just ahead of Janine's Secret Art, we do have the lead Pokemon for my favorite deck in the format currently, and that's the Macaroni Noodle Goldango. I know we already have a special illustration rare for this Pokemon, but I do like this artwork a little bit more just because of the coins falling from the sky, since its ability is coin bonus. Granted, the whole riding the skateboard through the sky thing is kind of weird, but Pokemon in general is weird, so. In the number 16 spot, I've got the Iron Valiant EX. My wife absolutely loves this card because she says it looks like a weaponized watermelon, and we might be the only 2 fans of this card. Me, solely because I grew up playing Super Mario Strikers. It looks like Iron Valiant is getting ready for a supercharged kick for gold. Breaking into our top 15, I have Leafeon EX, and yes, I know you're probably yelling at me right now, but to those of you that put Leafeon in your top 3 or top 5 favorite artworks from this list, what's wrong with you? Like, granted, it does look super cool. Is it better than the previous 17 artworks? Absolutely. Is it better than those in my top 5 or top 10? No, not a chance. It's standing on the branch and having the leaves and vines in the background looks super cool. Don't get me wrong, but it's just not my favorite. Same thing goes for the next 2 evolutions on this list. I have Vaporeon at 14 and Eevee at 13. I'm not an Evolution glazer, I'm not really an Evolution hater, but between these 2 artworks, I feel like there's something left to be desired. The Vaporeon, super cool. I do like the stained glass body, and I do like the simplicity of the Eevee with it being a brown Pokemon in a whitish background. However, I do think the other artworks on this list are just better artworks in general. Which leads me to number 12 on this list, and that is Raging Bolt. And I know you guys are probably fuming right now, but I love this art style. Between this and Roaring Moon, I do feel like there was a lot more work put into this rather than just mixing and matching colors and triangles, so on and so forth. But with the purple flowing mane and the Streaks of Fire going through the card, I don't think this is light years better than the other evolutions. I just feel like it's more dynamic, therefore I enjoy it more. And holding down spot 11, just shy of the top 10, is the Umbreon special illustration rare. I know most of y'all probably clicked off the video already. Whatever. I just don't glaze this card. I just don't think it's as good as the rest of the cards that I have in the top 10. It is a very gorgeous artwork, but again, it is the moon Pokemon standing in front of another moon. You know, I just, give me something else. Give me something a little bit more dynamic. That's what I enjoyed about the Moonbryon from Evolving Skies, is it's actually reaching for the moon. You know, we know it's not that close, but the way it's depicted just looks super, super cool. At number 10, and this is where y'all call me crazy, dumb, whatever, I've got Palafin EX. And I cannot for the life of me understand why there are people that hate this artwork. I grew up in an age of watching anime where the main character's entire bit was hard work and straight hands, and Palafin embodies every bit of that. It is such a cool and very simple artwork that they made into a dynamic masterpiece. Now that I say all that, part of me wants to swap it with number 9, because in the number 9 spot we do have Roaring Moon EX. Again, the reason I like Roaring Moon EX is similar to why I like Raging Bolt, but pound for pound I do think that Roaring Moon is in general a cooler Pokemon than Raging Bolt, and I like the way this artwork depicted Roaring Moon flying with meteors in the background. I actually don't know if they are meteors, but I'm just going to tell myself that because it makes the artwork that much cooler in my eyes. But to be fair, it's not cooler than the 8th card we have on this list, and that is Dragapult EX. As far as artworks go, I'm not a massive fan of the stained glass depiction. However, the fact that they could take Dragapult, a very angled Pokemon, and do what they've done with the mesh of colors and what literally just looks like triangles everywhere, triangles and trapezoids, I think they absolutely crushed it with this card. It's a fantastic artwork. I wish I could put it in the top 5, but it's just not as great as the rest of the cards on this list. What cards have I put ahead of it, you ask? Well, our next two are, of course, Evolutions. I've got the Glaceon and Flareon EX in spots 7 and 6. These are two very wonderful evolutions in general, but these artworks, the Flareon being wrapped in flames and the Glaceon standing in front of a wall of ice, I think they're just better evolution artwork depictions than the previous evolutions that we talked about. And I think it has a lot to do with the contrast of their bodies to the backgrounds or the artworks as a whole, where Vaporeon was, again, a stained glass body with a stained glass background. I didn't like how that meshed, but Glaceon being a normal depiction for a Pokemon with that ice background, incredible. But breaking into my definitive top 5 artworks here, and nobody will be able to change my mind, and I cannot wait for you guys to try to make me bend the knee to this, but number 5 is Blood Moon Ursaluna EX. This is what I need, what I desire when it comes to a Pokemon card. Blood Moon Ursaluna. The Pokemon Blood Moon Ursaluna with a red blood moon background and the smoke billowing from its body. It is the perfect depiction of a Pokemon. It deserves the praise because it's tremendous. And just ahead of the Blood Moon, I do have one of my favorite evolutions, and that is Jolteon EX. Jolteon in every depiction of every alt art, illustration rare, special illustration rare it's ever had, it just looks like it's having so much fun. It's a bright card, it's dynamic, it's wonderful. Every time I look at the thing, it reminds me of my dog, because every time we go on a run, he's so happy, he's got his tongue sticking out, he wants to run faster, and it just reminds me of Jolteon in every single way. Breaking into our top 3, I've got another evolution, and that is Sylveon EX. What can you say about this card? It's elegant, it's beautiful. It reminds me of that really hot girl you went to high school with that knew how hot she was, but she was also super kind, super nice, and she would talk to anybody and everybody, no matter their status, no matter if they were an anime watcher or just weird. She just wanted to treat everybody equally, and Sylveon just reminds me of that for some strange reason. In the number 2 spot, I've got Espeon EX. I know, I said I'm not an evolution glazer. I'm really not, but when it comes to Sylveon and Espeon, there's almost no possible way that you can't do just that. The purple background in contrast with the pink body, the way it's almost swimming through this like psychic bubble it's in, and the dynamic pose, it's just perfect. It is one of the best artworks in the Scarlet and Violet era so far, and for me it could quite possibly go down as one of the best artworks from the Scarlet and Violet era. And finally, in the number 1 spot, some of you may have already guessed this, but I have Cerulege EX. Go ahead, leave the video, leave a dislike, I don't care. You cannot convince me otherwise. The pose, the armor, the ring of purple fire, the background, the crown, everything about this artwork is brilliant. There is no critiquing this card, and if you don't already think this is a top 3 or top 5 artwork in Prismatic Evolutions, there's nothing I can say to convince you otherwise. But for me, this is a top 3 artwork from the Scarlet and Violet era. But anywho, thank you guys for sticking around for so long. If you liked the video, please consider leaving a like. And if you didn't, tell me down below, what are your top 3 favorite artworks from Prismatic Evolutions? Peace.